Um, with that then, I will introduce the next speaker, Loren Zitormersky. Yes. So I got that right now. He lives in California. I've got a number of points here. He's a movie production lawyer. He went to law school in Malibu, which I cannot even imagine how amazing that would be, the view, because Canadian, I feel like there would be a massive difference in how phenomenal the view from the classrooms would be. And he'll be coming up and speaking about his experiences as a backwards runner.
Hi everyone, my name is Loren Zitormersky. I'm so happy to be here. I've heard about this expo for many years now, and this is my first time here, and it's spectacular. I mean, it brings together the entire epilepsy community, and I'm just so happy to be here and speaking to you all. So I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with my story, but here's the background. Before I was born, my brother Brian, he passed away after suffering seizures in his sleep. He was only 7 years old at the time, and his seizures were actually controlled for over 2 years via medication. And one day his doctor wanted to see if he needed the medication anymore, and weaned him off the medication over about 2 weeks. And this was in 1977, so it was many years ago. And as a result, it was believed he went into status epilepticus in his sleep, and he passed away. Brian's doctor had never told my dad about any sort of risks or medical guidance as far as taking him off his medication so quickly. And of course, there was no mention of SUDEP back in 1977. Today, hopefully we've come a far way in medical science, and no doctor would do that. But back then, not as much was known, and doctors maybe did things that today we would say was crazy. My dad felt very lost after Brian's death, and he partially blamed himself. And it took many years of soul searching, and he was able to find help and support from within the epilepsy community. And my dad had always wanted to give back to that community that helped him out so much during his time of mourning. But he wasn't exactly sure how to do that. And one day he came to me and he said, and I was only 12 years old at the time, and he said, how about we ride our bicycles from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and we raise money from family and friends. And I was 12 years old at the time, and I was like, sure, Dad, whatever, let's do it. And that started off 21 years of fundraising and epilepsy awareness. To date, we've raised over $340,000 for the Epilepsy Foundation over the last 21 years. Thank you. And ultimately, we've done 10 bike rides. The longest bike ride we did was from LA, Los Angeles, to Washington D.C. back in 2006. Not easy. We did 9 marathons, and I did an Ironman back in 2015, and we did it all in Brian's name and Brian's memory. This year, I decided I wanted to go big with my epilepsy fundraising and awareness campaign, and I ran all 26.2 miles of the Boston Marathon backwards on April 16th. And sometimes people are confused when I say, I ran a marathon backwards, and they're like, oh, so you started at the finish line and you ran to the start line. I'm like, no, well, that would actually be really, really difficult to do. But no, literally, I ran it backwards. With my back to the finish line. And I was trying to break the Guinness World Record for the fastest marathon run backwards. And yes, there is a record out there. Other people have done this. Now, well, I didn't actually break the world record. And just to point out, I do have an excuse. The weather was absolutely horrendous. It was like the worst Boston Marathon weather they've ever had in like the 130 years that they've ran that marathon. It was like freezing cold and pouring rain and like 30-mile-an-hour winds. So it was miserable already, and then combined with running backwards, it was a challenge to say the least. I did finish the entire marathon backwards. And in the process, I was able to raise $75,000, which was more than I've ever raised in any other year. But I think also just as important, I raised a ton of awareness. I put myself out into the world via social media and reaching out to media, and I wanted to talk about epilepsy. They of course wanted to talk about backwards running, but I kept trying to talk about epilepsy. I never said no to any interview. And in total, I did over 80 interviews with local, national, international press, TV shows, newspapers, radio shows, magazines, blogs, and podcasts. And I use each one of those interviews as an opportunity to talk about how prevalent epilepsy is, the stigmas associated with it, and also like just general seizure first aid. And what I learned is a lot of people they don't really know much, and so I use it as a teaching opportunity. Now, getting to the Boston Marathon was such a long road. It was a difficult long road. I ran over 650 miles backwards. I fell many times. I injured myself. I ran into a tree once. I don't like to admit it, but yes, that happened. I struggled, but I received thousands of messages on social media from people within the epilepsy community with words of support and inspiration. People shared their stories of triumph and overcoming adversity, but also I got a lot of stories of tragedy and SUDEP and all of those messages that I received from everybody really pushed me during the tough times, during the adversity and struggle that I experienced trying to run an entire marathon backwards. When I made the decision to run the marathon backwards, I didn't really know what the connection was between backwards running and epilepsy. But as I trained and once I completed the marathon, it became crystal clear to me. Running backwards is a struggle, but so is having epilepsy or being otherwise affected by epilepsy. Seizures can come out of nowhere. It can definitely be like going through life backwards, unable to see what's ahead of you. But my struggle ends once I stop running backwards, whereas for a lot of people, their struggle persists every day. I ran backwards in memory of Brian, but also for all those people out there affected by epilepsy. My hope is that I can do my part in bringing epilepsy, out of the darkness and into the light, and that epilepsy no longer carries a stigma, and that people are open to talk about epilepsy. I think just me being, on the radio or wherever talking about epilepsy, I think it helps, and I think more people need to do that, and also just general education, about epilepsy and about seizure first aid is just so important. And most importantly, I hope that one day we can end epilepsy once and for all. I think my story is proof that anyone can make a difference in many different types of ways. You don't have to run a marathon backwards. You can do small things to benefit the cause also. If you hear somebody spreading alternative facts about seizures or seizure first aid, you can speak up and educate them. If you want to raise money for the cause, I've known people who have done bake sales or car washes, and you're raising money and you're also raising awareness at the same time, because people ask questions. They're always like, well, what is epilepsy? Is that the seizure disorder? So it's always an opportunity to teach people who may not otherwise know much about epilepsy. And there's a million other ways for people to get involved and to make that difference. When my dad and I did our first bike ride 21 years ago, we had no idea that that was the start of something, much bigger than ourselves. And, I encourage everybody, that's a big part of what I talk about, is to go out and do something, try to make a difference. And as I said, it could be something just so tiny that can make the difference in the lives of people struggling. Over the years, my involvement as a volunteer for the epilepsy community, I've had the opportunity to meet just so many individuals who are affected by epilepsy. And while I never got the opportunity to meet Brian, because he passed away before I was born, meeting those individuals and families has made me much closer to Brian. And, in a way, I feel as if, Brian's spirit and memory lives on. My ultimate hope is that Brian did not die in vain. And that's why I do what I do, and I'll continue doing it. So, thank you. And I got some photos because most people sometimes can't picture what running backwards is, and I'm not going to demonstrate it. It's not safe. So there's Brian. He was born in 1970 and passed away in 1977. There we are on our cross country. Actually, I think I skipped one. Let's see. That was it. Yeah, there we are finishing in Washington, D.C. on our cross-country bike ride. Very happy to be done with that ride. But as you can see, we didn't really know much about weight on bikes, and we were carrying like 50 pounds or something like that. And so the bike would just like fall over unless you held it up. It was we didn't know what we were doing. For the marathon, I had an epilepsy shaved in the back of my head, and unfortunately it was so cold I had to wear a beanie, so it kind of was covered up. But I had this picture in my head of it being a beautiful day, and epilepsy, but no, it didn't work out that way, but it was still fun. There's one of my media appearances here on the KTLA Morning News here in Los Angeles, which was great. To be able to educate people about seizure first aid and epilepsy in general. So there's me running backwards, high-fiving people. And a lot of people wanted to take photos with me, and once I realized that I wasn't going to break the world record, I decided I was going to have a good time and not fall, do my best not to fall. And so I took a lot of pictures with people, and it was really inspirational because a lot of people came up to me and told me their epilepsy stories during the marathon, that they have a kid with epilepsy or they have epilepsy themselves. And so I think that kind of pushed me in the freezing temperatures to finish that terrible race. And that was kind of near the end, and just to give you an idea of the obstacles, there was just debris everywhere. It was dangerous, more dangerous than I expected. And so, someone asked me to describe it, and I said it was like playing Frogger but blindfolded, which I don't know. The young people may not know what Frogger is, but and then there's me finishing the race, and I was very, very happy to be done. And there's me eating pizza. You burn a lot of calories running backwards, so and that's it. Thanks everyone. Thanks for listening.